Good morning. Welcome to my Chimwag. It's very nice to be here on the 12th of July 2022 on another sunny day here down on the south coast, which is absolutely fantastic. I've got a subject I want to talk about in a second. How important are standards to you? Politeness and manners. Are they still important, or have we lost them? Coming up in a second, but just a few comments. I like to go through the comments and see what's going on. Just to point out, I am trying to go through the comments that get put into the moderated department. I don't know how else to describe it, in which I have to approve them. YouTube has added a new strictness level, which is quite handy. It gets rid of the spam. So anyway, I've been going through that. So hopefully if your comments that you've made hasn't turned up, they should turn up at least a day later. So apologies for that. Mark PKS says, good video, Richard, talking about the most recent one. He says it's about finding things in common rather than looking for those that keep us apart, I guess, in general debate and stuff. And I guess that's a fair enough point. Rob Murphy says, I love these chats, and that you don't feel you have to go with the flow. After losing my wife and going through the lockdown, you were enormous help to me. I'll always follow you. And now, Julia, with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. That's very kind. And I'm pleased that we were able to somehow, in what very small way that we do our stuff on all the channels that we do, help in some way. It's very humbling to hear that. Lots of people coming up with suggestions for names and things, and so thank you very much. Keep those coming. That's very kind. I don't know where to go with those. There's so many. That's the great thing. Anthony Conti says, I can understand Sugar Bomb's feelings. This is, we were talking about this. I was reading the comment about Sugar Bomb, who was a born Indian, who said that I feel that you've alienated me, words to that effect anyway. Because I'm not actually born in Britain, and therefore she or he has a different view now about my videos, and possibly isn't even watching anymore. And that's very sad. I think people are allowed to express their views, and none of it's aimed personally at anyone. I mean, my views are very general, and so, and often perhaps ill thought out. But people seem to take offence very quickly and then turn their back, as if this world, if it's not 100% quite how they want it, I don't know what it is. We're being trained, I think. Instead of listening, mulling over and thinking about, people are taking an instant like or dislike to something, going, oh, if that's your view, sorry, not having anything more to do with you, which is a shame. Because I think people do change their mind. They often misspeak. They often express themselves poorly. And I do that very often. So we should be able to give people a chance to sort of go, well, is that really what you mean? Maybe that's not quite what you mean. But Anthony Conti goes on to say, perhaps it might be wise to stay clear of controversial topics. That's not a great approach to anything. I think the whole thing is that we should talk about controversial topics, things that are discomforting to listen to. Sometimes we can't have a whole planet full of people who put their head in the sand and go, oh, I don't want to hear that, because we'll never progress if that's what we want to do, and that's a question mark in itself. Why are we always progressing, and what are we progressing to, other than a supposed utopia and a better world that never really happens? I think controversial topics are exactly what we should be talking about, so that we can get rid of those controversial topics, that we have an understanding. Whether it's an agreement, it doesn't matter, but we can understand on both sides of the argument. That would be my thing. Chris Samuel says, on the last point, he says, talking about nations and things, nations have evolved and have sustained for a reason. Each has its own merit. If we put them into a big melting pot, we will lose much more than we gain. And I think you're absolutely right. He says, we will be immersed in diversity to the point where diversity itself ceases to be. let us conserve our respective nations, let each citizen learn and celebrate their precious heritage, and in turn respect that of others. When everybody has everything, nobody has anything. And I think that's absolutely true. It's what makes travelling around the world absolutely fascinating and enjoyable, because you go and see all these different cultures in different places that have evolved in the place where they grew up. If it's all in one big melting point, I do tend to agree. If everybody comes over and brings all of their stuff into one place, and you end up with this grey, instead of what is colourful and delightful, but just this sort of grey mix of everything, you've lost it all. So I totally agree with that. Thank you very much, Chris Samuels. And Shirley Lynch, to end on these, says, another great chinwag, and you're looking so smart. Thank you. That brings us on to how important are standards to you. I think it's important to make yourself presentable if you're going to appear in people's living rooms or in their personal space, such as on their PC, on their phone, on their tablet, and so forth, because I just think that's a nice thing to do. There are so many people on YouTube who just dress up in any old crap and think that's acceptable. Now, I'm not criticising them. It's just I think it's nice to raise the game a bit. I try to look reasonably smart on this show, as best I can, on the limited budget that I have, and most of my stuff is actually second-hand, and it doesn't. I mean, admittedly, some things I did buy this waistcoat new, and it was about £30, I think. Now, I'm not saying that everyone's got to dress up and spend money and all that, but I'm just saying that one can raise one's standard on how you look relatively cheaply these days. But a lot of people seem to prefer to dress down, I guess, for comfort. But if you go back in time, people may well have been comfortable or didn't dress down, but it was expected to have a certain type of standard. Even poor people, they may have had rag and bones, but you'd see the kids still dressed in a jacket and trousers. They may not have had shoes, or their shoes may have had holes in it. And you would still have people who had a bit of respect, out there scrubbing their doorstep, trying to make the place look nice. Standards was at one point very important, but has it diminished? That's a question I would like to ask. Has it disappeared? And I think in many ways it has. Now, here's an interesting, I don't know if it's interesting, but here's a story that I want to relate to you. Julia and I have been away for 24 hours on an escape to the country for a video that'll be coming out on our sister station, The Bald Explorer. Now, when that comes out, there's a moment in which, I don't know that we actually filmed this, but there's a moment where we stayed overnight in the van in a lay-by, and it was just out of the way, and nobody bothered us, and it was fine. It was lovely. But to have breakfast, we thought, well, all we've got here is a view of a hedge. So we trundled back up the road into this very beautiful and very English village with a smashing green and these old properties that probably date from 1600s around the green. It was a most charming, quintessential English village that you could ask for. The properties, of course, are likely to be in the millions these days, absolutely, and surrounded by lovely gardens and hedges and beautiful flowers and all of this, and of course a number of very expensive cars. So it was well to do. And we brought up our van and we parked up just at the edge of the green, and we were cooking bacon in there. And I thought to myself, as we saw a few people out wandering in the morning, that we were going to get some snooty looks. I don't know why I thought that. I imagine that if you've got a lovely village and everything is pristine, and then these travellers from out of town turn up, and they start cooking their bacon and having their breakfast and swigging their coffee and stuff, that I just felt that we might be unwelcome in that environment. But I was wrong. The people of this village were absolutely charming. A few dog walkers came and spoke to us, even if it was just a hearty good morning. One lady we engaged with had her little dog and was talking about the dog and some of the properties and all of that. It was lovely. And then it dawned on me, of course, Julia was wearing a beautiful cocktail dress, and I was wearing similar to, not exactly the same clothes, but similar. We were smartly dressed. The van was relatively clean, and it looked very nice. And I wondered to myself, would the same attitude, not that we're any different from anybody else, we don't have a huge amount of cash between us to rub together, but would the same attitude have appeared if we were just in shorts and a t-shirt and a bit scruffy and our hair, or well, I haven't got any hair, but you know what I mean. If we just looked like so many people, perhaps, and this isn't a criticism, by the way, so please don't take it that way, but if we had, I don't know, rings in our fingers and stuff in our noses and all of that, and perhaps looked a bit, Julia called it bohemian, I said, or a bit hippie, or that we were just in really scruffy clothes, would that have had the same attitude? And I guess it may have done. I think so much depends on your manner as well. We were very polite. We were very good morning. We were very nice. We spoke clearly. And now you might just say, well, you know, Richard, you're just a bit of a posh snob and that's the way you operate. And I don't consider myself posh, and I'm very lucky, even though I went to a comprehensive school, that for some reason, I don't know where it came from, because I don't know that it came from my parents. I have a reasonable what shall we say, accent and use of language, and I speak relatively clearly and succinctly. At least I do try. And I've just found that by doing that, and being polite, you get on so well with people. And very often, I'm aware that some people who aren't polite, who haven't bothered to express themselves terribly clearly, who seem to get the hump much more quickly, don't get the same respect from other people. I go out of my way to respect other people and be polite to them, and try and keep my standards high in the public domain as much as I can. I try to be polite, I try not to swear in front of people, but I cannot help but notice, living where I do, near a supermarket, and there's a walkway that goes into the supermarket, the amount of people that not only dress in a very slovenly way, that don't really care what anybody else thinks of them, that they talk in a way in which they're swearing and effing and blinding left, right and centre in front of not only other people, but their own children. And I think, what is the world coming to? Did we always behave like that? Am I just an old dinosaur, as somebody's mentioned in the past? And I'm very pleased to know that somebody else mentioned, well, take that as a compliment, because dinosaurs were around for 165 million years, whereas the humans have only been around for 300,000. So actually, I quite take that. Being a dinosaur seems to be a good thing. So I'm interested, how important to you, or is it all a load of old rubbish? Am I talking rubbish? Am I being a bit of a snob? I hope I'm not coming over a bit of a snob, but I think respecting people and being polite and having manners and presenting yourself nicely is not a bad way to approach the world. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Anyway, that's my little contentious or controversial topic for today, and I hope you get something out of that. Look forward to your comments. Take care, and hopefully catch up with you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.